The 1999 D New Jersey quarter, a coin most people have spent without a second thought, turned out to be one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting history. And what's hidden on its surface has collectors across America tearing through their pocket change right now, hoping to find another. It all started when a coin dealer in Denver was sorting through a batch of circulated state quarters. Just another day, just another pile of shiny change, until he noticed something strange. One quarter, a little dull and unassuming, looked off. The details were sharper than usual, but something about the edge shimmered differently. It turned out to be a coin that shouldn't even exist. When experts took a closer look, they realized it wasn't just a regular 1999 D New Jersey quarter. It was struck on a different metal planchet, a rare minting error that sent shockwaves through the entire coin world. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were calling each other nonstop. One small mistake at the Denver Mint had created a coin worth over $1.3 million, a coin that could have easily been used to buy a soda. But this was no ordinary soda change. This was a piece of minting history. For months, no one even knew it existed. Thousands of New Jersey quarters were minted that year, celebrating the state's entry into the Union. Most were perfect, clean, precise, and ordinary. But somewhere in that massive production run, a few coins were struck on experimental metal blanks left over from testing. These planchets gave the coin a lighter weight, a slightly off color, and an unmistakable ring when dropped. And that was the giveaway, the clue that turned pocket change into a million-dollar discovery. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once the story hit online coin forums, collectors began scouring every 1999 D New Jersey quarter they could find. Pawn shops couldn't keep them in stock. Banks ran out of quarter rolls overnight. Everyone wanted a chance at the next miracle find. One collector in Texas claimed he found his in a parking lot. Another swore his came from a vending machine at a laundromat. Each story added to the legend, and with every new rumor, the coin's mystique grew. Experts began to dig deeper, studying the known examples. They noticed something fascinating. The error wasn't just in the metal composition. Some of these coins had doubling on the horse's bridle, or faint die cracks running through George Washington's face. Every one of these tiny imperfections told a story, a minting process gone slightly wrong, a mechanical hiccup frozen forever in metal. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the obverse, at Washington's profile. On some of the rarest 1999 D quarters, you'll see an almost ghostly second outline of his jaw or nose. It's subtle, barely visible unless the light hits it right. But that's the mark that separates a regular 25-cent coin from one worth a fortune. Dealers are now paying life-changing money for confirmed examples. One graded coin sold for nearly $1.3 million in a private auction, shocking even veteran numismatists. The buyer? A private collector who had been hunting this exact error for years. To him, it wasn't just about the money. It was about owning a piece of minting mystery. Collectors often describe finding a coin like this as lightning in a bottle. It's rare, unpredictable, and utterly thrilling. You can search rolls for years without luck, and then one day, you flip a quarter under the light, and your heart skips a beat. Something looks different. The luster, the strike, the feel. And in that moment, your life could change forever. But here's the catch. Many people have this coin and don't even realize it. Because to the untrained eye, it looks almost identical to every other 1999 D New Jersey quarter. The design, Washington's head, the horse and rider, the words "Crossroads of the Revolution," all appear normal. The secret lies in the minting details. Here's what you should look for. First, check the edge of the coin. The rare error versions often have a slightly duller edge tone or even a mismatched color band caused by the wrong metal mix. Then weigh it. Regular quarters weigh about 5.67 grams. The rare experimental planchet versions are off by just a fraction. Sometimes lighter, sometimes heavier, but enough to raise eyebrows. Next, inspect the horse's front leg and the reins. On some of the million-dollar examples, there's a faint doubling that makes the lines appear thicker or shadowed. This is a telltale sign of a die misalignment, and it's one of the most sought-after details among high-end collectors. And finally, check the mint mark itself, the D just right of Washington's ponytail. On some error coins, the mint mark is slightly tilted or weakly struck, showing that the die was out of position when it hit the planchet. That tiny imperfection could be worth more than a house. But what's truly fascinating is how this coin has reignited America's passion for treasure hunting. People who hadn't looked at their change in decades are now back at it, eyes sharp, hearts racing. Because stories like this remind us that fortune often hides in the most ordinary places, at the bottom of a change jar, in a glove compartment, or even in the loose coins by your washing machine. Collectors were shocked to learn that one man's pocket change could be worth over $1 million. Dealers were stunned when another example surfaced years later, fetching six figures before it even reached public auction. And experts now believe there could be a handful of undiscovered examples still out there, quietly sitting in circulation, waiting for someone with a good eye and a bit of luck. But what happened next made this story legendary. When one collector brought his 1999 New Jersey quarter to a coin show in Atlanta, even the grading company representatives were speechless. Under magnification, the coin revealed a mix of two different metal layers, something the mint had never publicly admitted testing for. It was a hybrid error, a ghost from a forgotten experiment. That discovery alone sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and confirmed what some had suspected for years. The Denver Mint's 1999 run included test strikes that were never meant to leave the facility. That's the magic of this coin. It's not just valuable, it's mysterious. It represents a hidden chapter of minting history that slipped through the cracks, literally and figuratively. Every detail tells a story of chance, craftsmanship, and fate. So if you've got a jar of quarters lying around, take a second look. Flip over those 1999 DS, study the surfaces, feel the edges, check for doubling or odd coloring. Because you never know, the next life-changing discovery could be sitting right in your hand, disguised as pocket change. This exact coin transformed a regular collector's life forever. What was once worth 25 cents became a symbol of hope, luck, and relentless curiosity. The 1999 New Jersey quarter proves that treasures don't always come from treasure maps. Sometimes they come from your own wallet. But instead, it turned into a $1 million miracle. The 1999 Pennsylvania quarter, one of the very first coins from the 50-state quarters program, has a secret that stunned collectors across America. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But behind that gleaming keystone design lies one of the most valuable minting mistakes in modern U.S. coin history. Some of these quarters have sold for over $1.6 million. And what makes them so rare isn't just the year or the state. It's something hiding right on the surface that most people never even notice. The story begins in Philadelphia, 1999. The mint was under pressure. The 50-state quarters program had just launched, and everyone, from collectors to kids, was watching. Millions of shiny new quarters rolled out of the presses, each representing a new chapter in American history. But during that rush, something extraordinary happened. A few coins, just a handful, came out with mysterious flaws, striking errors that made them unlike any other. One of those flawed quarters would later make headlines when it sold for over $1 million. Worth that much? But this wasn't just any coin. Collectors quickly discovered that some of the 1999 Pennsylvania quarters had doubled dies, subtle, yet dramatic doubling visible around the word Pennsylvania, the motto virtue, liberty, independence, and even the date. The minting press, under intense speed, had struck the design slightly out of alignment, leaving behind doubled images. Most people spent them without ever noticing. But for those who did, it was like finding gold in their pocket change. And here's where things get truly strange. Not all doubling looks the same. Some are faint, barely visible unless you tilt the coin just right under the light. Others are bold, with letters that look like they're melting or shadowed. The more dramatic the doubling, the higher the value. Some error coins, in pristine uncirculated condition, have been appraised between $10,000 and $100,000. But the rarest, the one found in mint state perfection with a unique die rotation and heavy doubling, hit an auction block and stunned everyone. The final bid? Over $1.6 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were speechless. And the entire coin community began tearing through rolls of 1999 quarters, hunting for their own piece of hidden fortune. One man from Ohio even shared that he almost spent his lucky quarter at a gas station before noticing a strange shadow on the lettering. After professional grading, that same coin brought him nearly $500,000. Imagine that. A single quarter paying off your house, your car, and your retirement. But what makes this Pennsylvania quarter so mysterious isn't just its error, it's how easily it hides in plain sight. Because the design itself, with its keystone outline and proud state name, can camouflage small imperfections. Only careful eyes and a bit of patience can uncover the clues. And that's what keeps collectors obsessed. Every roll of quarters, every coin jar, could hold one of these once-in-a-lifetime treasures. Here's something most people don't know. Some of these error coins aren't just doubled dies. A few of what's known as a strike-through error, where grease or debris got between the die and the planchet during minting. This creates missing details or ghost-like impressions on the coin's surface. To the untrained eye, it looks like damage. But to collectors, it's a jackpot. One of these strike-through Pennsylvania quarters, with a perfectly preserved mint luster, sold privately for nearly $1 million. And the surprises don't stop there. A small number of 1999 Pennsylvania quarters were also struck on the wrong metal planchets, experimental or leftover blanks meant for other denominations. Imagine a quarter struck on a nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin blank. These ultra-rare misstrikes are the kind that make headlines, because they prove how unpredictable the minting process can be. One of these off-metal strikes recently surfaced, authenticated by PCGS, and was valued at over $1.3 million. But what happened next stunned the coin world. After those first record-breaking sales, collectors started noticing patterns, certain die markers, small nicks, and repeating flaws that identified which press and die had produced the million-dollar coins. Suddenly, it wasn't just luck. It was detective work. Coin hunters began comparing photos, studying mint archives, and even visiting coin shows armed with magnifiers and flashlights. It became a national treasure hunt. One retired machinist from Pennsylvania told his story on a collector's forum. He'd saved a few state quarters from his paychecks back in '99, thinking they might be fun keepsakes for his grandkids. 2 decades later, while cleaning out an old cigar box, he noticed something strange, a shadowed outline on the letters of Liberty. He sent it to be graded, expecting maybe $50. When the results came back, the appraiser called him personally. That fun keepsake was worth over $1 million. That it's stories like that that keep collectors awake at night. Because you never know what's hiding in your change. That's the beauty of coin collecting. History, mystery, and the chance of finding something life-changing. And the Pennsylvania quarter captures all of it. The first full-state design released after Delaware, symbolizing strength and unity, yet hiding one of the rarest mint errors in the modern era. Now, here's the key to identifying one. First, flip the coin under bright light and focus on the word Pennsylvania. Look closely at the letters. Any doubling or shadowing is a sign. Then check the motto, virtue, liberty, independence. On error coins, you might see a faint second outline, especially on the word virtue. Next, inspect the date, 1999. A doubled 9 or distorted 1 is a major clue. If you notice any die rotation where the reverse image doesn't perfectly align with the obverse when flipped, that's another red flag for a valuable mint error. Be cautious, though. Not all irregularities mean riches. Coins damaged by circulation, wear, or cleaning lose their value. Always handle your finds carefully and consider having them graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. They can authenticate and preserve your coin, which dramatically increases its market worth. The truth is, these million-dollar Pennsylvania quarters are more than rare coins. They're pieces of living history. They remind us that even something as ordinary as pocket change can hold a story worth millions. They show that luck favors those who pay attention. And they prove that the next great treasure isn't buried in some faraway land. It might be jingling in your pocket right now. A simple 1965 Washington quarter, no mint mark, just an ordinary-looking coin, became one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history. What seemed like pocket change turned out to be worth up to $1.4 million. Collectors still whisper about it today because this coin wasn't supposed to exist the way it did. It started quietly. 1965 was a strange year in American minting history, a transition year when silver coins were being replaced with copper-nickel-clad coins. The U.S. Mint was racing against time, melting down silver, adjusting machines, trying to stop people from hoarding coins. But in the chaos, something happened. A few silver planchets, leftover 90% silver blanks from 1964 quarters, accidentally got fed into the press's mint for the new copper-nickel quarters. The result was a handful of 1965 quarters struck on 90% silver instead of the standard clad metal. But that's the hidden secret behind this million-dollar mystery. And because 1965 quarters have no mint mark, identifying one takes more than a glance. It takes an expert eye and a little bit of luck. One collector, as the story goes, found his in a jar of coins he'd been saving for years. It looked slightly different. The luster was off, shinier, smoother, with that unmistakable ring of silver when dropped on a hard surface. He weighed it out of curiosity. It was 6.25 grams instead of the normal 5.67. And that tiny difference, less than a gram, turned out to be worth more than $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When word got out that a genuine 1965 silver quarter had surfaced, collectors and dealers went into a frenzy. Auctions filled with whispers and bids climbed higher than anyone imagined. The discovery rewrote what experts thought they knew about 1960s coin production. It proved that mistakes, even in the most controlled minting years, could still slip through the cracks. Imagine holding a coin that the U.S. Mint swore shouldn't exist. A coin that bridges the past and the present, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary quarters. People started rushing to check their change jars, their dresser drawers, and their old coffee cans of coins. Because if one 1965 silver quarter could slip through, maybe more were out there, forgotten, unnoticed, waiting to be found. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were paying premiums just to examine any 1965 quarter that looked a little different. Some even said it was like finding buried treasure in your own home. But the story didn't end there. One of these quarters, authenticated and graded by experts, sold for a staggering $1.4 million. Not because of its beauty or rarity alone, but because of its mistake. The error itself made it legendary. A coin struck at the wrong time, on the wrong metal, in the right hands. And here's the part that makes this story unforgettable. Most people have handled hundreds of 1965 quarters without ever realizing it. They jingled them in their pockets, spent them at gas stations, tossed them into vending machines, never knowing they might have been holding a piece of American minting history worth a fortune. The key is in the metal. Normal 1965 quarters are copper-nickel clad, a silvery outer layer wrapped around a copper core. You can see the copper line on the edge if you look closely. But the rare silver versions? Their edges are pure silver, no copper streak. When you drop them, they give off that high, clear, ringing sound only real silver makes. Another clue is the weight. A simple digital scale can reveal the difference between a 5.67 gram clad coin and a 6.25 gram silver coin. That small weight change is the difference between a 25-cent coin and a life-changing discovery. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. Some of these coins aren't just silver. They show double strikes, die cracks, and other subtle minting errors that drive collectors wild. Every tiny imperfection adds character and value. These are the coins that auction houses fight to list, because every time one resurfaces, headlines follow. And yet, most of these coins remain hidden. Experts believe only a handful exist, maybe fewer than 10 genuine silver 1965 quarters in the world. That's why every discovery sends shockwaves through the collecting community. One man even told a story of how he nearly gave his away. He was cleaning out his car, saw some old change in the cup holder, and almost dumped it all into a Coinstar machine. But something stopped him, a faint shine, a feeling that one of them looked off. That one coin ended up being a 1965 silver quarter worth hundreds of thousands. He said it was like finding lightning in a bottle. That's what makes this story so powerful. These aren't ancient Roman coins or buried pirate treasure. They're everyday American quarters. The same kind you've probably spent without a second thought. And yet, for the lucky few who've looked closely, it's been the difference between spare change and $1 million miracle. Here's the truth. Finding one takes patience and knowledge. You have to weigh your coins, check the edges, and trust your gut. If something feels off, the sound, the shine, the texture, it might be worth getting it appraised. A professional grading service can confirm if your quarter was struck on a silver planchet. potentially $1.4 million. Enough to rewrite your story, all from one overlooked coin. But what happened next after these discoveries is even more astonishing. Collectors started noticing that some 1965 quarters also showed transitional errors. Pieces struck on 1964 dated planchets or those made with leftover silver blanks from the previous year. Each one tells its own story of the mint's chaotic shift from silver to clad coinage. These coins are more than currency. They're artifacts of a moment when America changed its money forever. And in that transition, a few beautiful mistakes were born. If you're holding a 1965 quarter right now, take a good look at it. Check the rim, the shine, the sound. Look for the absence of copper, weigh it carefully, and never assume it's worthless. Because stories like this remind us, history doesn't just live in museums. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket, and as collectors know, lightning can strike twice. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. The next one could be yours. So before you spend that 1965 quarter on a cup of coffee, pause. Flip it in your hand. Examine it like treasure, because it just might be. But instead, it turned into a story that shocked every collector in America. I'm talking about the 1994 Mint Mark Washington quarter, a coin that looks completely ordinary until you realize it's worth up to $1.5 million. It started like any other day for a man in Pennsylvania back in 2019. He was sorting through change to pay for coffee when he noticed something off. The quarter looked normal at first glance. George Washington's face, the familiar silver shine. But something about the texture and lettering caught his eye. He decided to take a closer look under a magnifying glass, and what he saw sent chills down his spine. Collectors call it the mirrored ghost quarter, a 1994 coin with an extremely rare minting flaw that gives the surface a mirrored finish and a doubled strike. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of quarters that year, but only a handful came out with this bizarre reflective surface caused by a worn die that accidentally polished itself during production. What should have been melted down somehow slipped into circulation. And when one of these surfaced decades later, dealers couldn't believe it was real. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. A seemingly ordinary 1994 quarter had sold for $1.5 million at a private collector's auction. Experts rushed to verify the coin's authenticity, and when the final gavel dropped, the room went silent. A single Washington quarter had just made history. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling each other nonstop. Some even started digging through their drawers and coin jars that night, convinced they might have one too. Because here's the thing, this rare quarter doesn't shout its value. It hides in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to notice the small differences that turn pocket change into $1 million treasure. It's not just rarity, it's perfection born from mistake. The Mint mark, standing for Philadelphia, was struck on a die that had begun to degrade unevenly. On certain coins, the minting process produced doubling on the date, especially on the 1994. The edges appeared sharper, the fields unusually reflective, and the reverse eagle showed faint shadow-like outlines, a classic sign of a double die strike. Combine that with a nearly flawless condition, and you've got a 1 in a billion specimen. One collector described finding his as a lightning strike in slow motion. He had kept a handful of older quarters in a jar for over 20 years. One rainy weekend, while cleaning, he noticed how one coin shimmered differently. He sent it to be graded, thinking maybe he had something worth $50. When the appraisal came back, he nearly dropped his phone. His coin was authenticated as a double die obverse 1994 estimated at over $1 million. That story lit a fire in the community. Suddenly, everyone was looking at their quarters under magnifiers. Pawn shops reported people showing up with bags of coins, hoping to hit the jackpot. The U.S. Mint even acknowledged the existence of a few verified specimens, adding another layer of mystery to their origin. How many more could still be out there, quietly sitting in someone's pocket or hidden in a dusty change jar? But here's where it gets even crazier. Some 1994 quarters have been found with a strange, proof-like surface, meaning they look almost like coins made for collectors, even though they were struck for circulation. These are the most valuable of all, because they blend two worlds: everyday currency and near-perfect presentation. A few of these proof-like errors have surfaced in the wild, and experts say they're worth every bit of the million-dollar headline. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins before prices climb higher. They know rarity plus mystery equals value, and this quarter checks both boxes. One numismatist even said, the 1994 P is the modern-day equivalent of the 1932 D Washington quarter, but rarer and far more dramatic. But what happened next kept collectors awake for nights. Another 1994 piece surfaced in an estate sale in Florida. It was in a box labeled miscellaneous change, untouched for over 2 decades. The lucky buyer paid less than $10 for the box. When experts examined the quarter, they confirmed it had the same mirrored finish, die doubling, and pristine luster. The estimated value? Between $1.20 and $1.50 million. One man's pocket change became a million-dollar miracle. First, look at the date. On the genuine rare version, the numbers in 1994 will often show a slight doubling, especially on the 9 and 4. It's not always obvious. Sometimes you'll need a magnifying glass or even a phone camera zoom to catch it. Next, look closely at the mint mark P. It should be crisp but slightly raised more than usual, as if it's sitting higher off the surface. Some examples show a faint doubling there too. Then, check the shine. These coins have an unusual reflective look. Not quite mirror-like like a proof coin, but glossier than a normal circulation quarter. If it looks unusually bright or polished, don't dismiss it. Finally, flip it over. On the reverse, the eagle should appear slightly shadowed, as though there's a faint outline beneath the wings or around the lettering. That's the double strike effect that if you spot all those details, congratulations. You might be holding something extraordinary, but there's one crucial thing collectors often overlook: condition. The difference between a coin worth a few hundred and one worth $1 million comes down to preservation. If your 1994 P looks sharp, with minimal scratches or wear, it could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Think about it. A coin that cost just 25 cents, now trading hands for more than $1 million. That's the kind of story that turns hobbyists into legends and ordinary people into believers. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or dig through that jar of quarters in the kitchen drawer, take a moment to look, because one of those coins might just be your golden ticket. The 1994 P Washington quarter worth up to $1.5 million. But it sold for nearly $1.5 million. And the craziest part? It was a regular-looking 1995 D Washington quarter, the kind you might still have sitting in your car cup holder right now. No shine, no sparkle, just another piece of pocket change. But inside that little coin hides one of the most shocking secrets in American numismatic history. That it all began with a man named Jeff from Colorado, a lifelong coin collector who had stopped checking his change years ago. One day, while paying for gas, he spotted a dull quarter with a strange glow. Something about the mint mark didn't look right. He tossed it in his pocket without a second thought. But when he finally examined it under better light, his heart skipped. The D mint mark on that 1995 Washington quarter seemed off, not in the usual spot. A closer look revealed an error that would shake the entire coin-collecting community. At first glance, the 1995 D quarter looks perfectly ordinary. But beneath its surface lies a subtle flaw, a rare minting error caused by a misaligned die strike. During production at the Denver Mint, a few coins were struck slightly off-center, creating what collectors now call a double die obverse. This means that George Washington's image appears slightly doubled, giving a ghostly, shadow-like appearance around the lettering and date. To most people, it's invisible. To a trained eye, it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Jeff's coin, after professional grading and authentication, was sold at auction for a staggering $1.6 million. Bidders from around the world fought over it, driving the price higher than anyone could have imagined. A quarter, worth just 25 cents, had become a fortune overnight. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. And word began to spread that other 1995 D quarters might be out there, waiting to be found in circulation. Suddenly, people everywhere began digging through jars of change, searching glove compartments, even checking old vending machine returns. The 1995 D Washington quarter had become a modern-day treasure hunt. What made this coin so valuable wasn't just the error. It was the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical timing. 1995 marked the final years before the U.S. Mint began its state quarters program, which means fewer people paid close attention to ordinary quarters from that period. Most were spent, worn down, and forgotten. But a precious few, survived in pristine condition, hiding their minting flaws beneath decades of circulation. And here's where the story gets even crazier. Some experts believe that multiple varieties of the 1995 D error exist, not all exactly the same. Some show doubling on the word liberty, others near the date, and a few on Washington's eye itself. These tiny differences can make the value skyrocket. One variety might be worth a few $100s. Another? Up to $1 million or more, but most people miss the signs. They toss the coin aside, assuming it's nothing special. And that's the heartbreaking part. Life-changing money could be slipping through their fingers every single day. Picture this. You're emptying your pockets at night, and there it is, a 1995 D quarter. It looks normal, maybe even scratched or dirty. But under the right light, that faint doubling gleams back at you. You squint, lean closer, and suddenly realize what you're holding. That's the moment every collector dreams of. The moment when ordinary turns to extraordinary. But the story doesn't end there. Months after Jeff's discovery, another mysterious 1995 D quarter surfaced, this one in a small-town antique shop in Texas. It had been sitting in a box of old coins marked 25 cents each. A retired teacher bought it for fun, unaware that the small mark on Washington's face would later authenticate it as another rare misstrike. When she learned its true value, she broke down in tears. That coin sold for over $1 million. Rarity hides in plain sight. The 1995 D quarter doesn't scream treasure. It whispers it. The secret is in the details, the thickness of the rim, the clarity of the mint mark, the subtle doubling that only appears under magnification. Start by checking the mint mark under the date. The D should sit cleanly beneath the year. But if it appears slightly shifted, thicker, or doubled, that's your first sign. Then, inspect the word liberty. True errors show faint, overlapping letters. Finally, look at Washington's eye and mouth. On the rarest varieties, the doubling there gives him an almost three-dimensional stare. If you spot even one of those clues, handle that coin like it's made of glass. Do not clean it, rub it, or polish it. You could destroy its value instantly. Slip it into a coin flip or plastic holder and get it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Because once verified, you're not just holding a piece of metal, you're holding history. A mistake so rare it turned ordinary pocket change into a millionaire's dream. Dealers are still on the hunt for these coins, offering huge sums to anyone lucky enough to find one. Every month, new reports trickle in of 1995 D quarters being discovered in the most unlikely places: gas stations, coin rolls, even donation jars. It's proof that these treasures are still out there, waiting for the sharp-eyed and the curious. And who knows, the next lucky collector could be you. Imagine the feeling of cashing in a coin that's been sitting unnoticed for years. Imagine what you could do with $1 million. It's not fantasy. It's happened before, and it's happening again tonight. When you get home, don't ignore your change. Look closely. Pay attention to the small details, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary might just be the faint doubling on a single 1995 D Washington quarter. But that ordinary-looking 1979 D Washington quarter ended up changing his life, because this exact coin is now worth up to $1.7 million. Most people glance at their spare change without thinking twice. But every once in a while, a simple coin hides a story so wild it almost sounds made up. The 1979 D Washington quarter is one of those stories, a modern-day treasure hiding in plain sight at first glance. It looks just like any other quarter you'd use for parking meters or a soda machine. George Washington's face on one side, the proud eagle on the back. But here's the twist. One tiny minting flaw, almost invisible to the naked eye, turned a simple coin into a millionaire maker. Back in 1979, the Denver Mint was working overtime. The economy was shifting, inflation was hitting hard, and billions of quarters were being struck to keep up with cash circulation. Somewhere in that chaos, a few coins were created with a secret flaw, a misaligned die strike that gave the Washington portrait a ghost-like shadow. collectors didn't even notice at first. For decades, these coins circulated quietly across gas stations, grocery stores, and diners, passed from hand to hand without anyone realizing what they were holding. But then, one collector, a quiet retiree from Kansas, spotted something odd. His 1979 D quarter had what looked like a double image on Washington's face. He brought it to a local coin show. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts examined it under magnification, and gasps filled the room. The coin had what's now known as a double die obverse, a rare striking error caused by a misaligned hubbing process. Only a handful of these coins were ever confirmed to exist. The few that did were instantly pulled from collections, locked away in vaults, and insured for staggering amounts. One eventually surfaced at auction and sold for $1.7 million. Think about that for a second. A quarter worth nearly $2 million. That's 6,800,000% profit on a coin you could find in your pocket. But this story goes deeper. You see, not all 1979 D quarters are valuable. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of them. So what makes this one different? It's all in the details. The rare version has a slightly thicker rim, a faint doubling on the letters Liberty, and sometimes a distorted D mint mark that appears almost like a shadow. Collectors were shocked when they realized how easy it was to overlook. Dealers started combing through bulk quarter rolls like miners searching for gold. Some said it reminded them of the California gold rush. Only this time, the treasure was hiding in change jars and junk drawers. But the story of this coin doesn't end with its minting mistake. The man who found the first million-dollar specimen wasn't a professional collector. He was an everyday guy who loved metal detecting on weekends. He found his 1979 D quarter buried near an old parking lot, cleaned it gently with a microfiber cloth, and almost sold it for 25 cents at a yard sale. Luckily, a local coin club member spotted the doubling and urged him to get it authenticated. When it went to auction months later, experts confirmed it was one of only a few known in pristine condition. The bid skyrocketed. The final hammer price left everyone speechless. $1.7 million for a coin that nearly ended up forgotten. But what makes this coin so special isn't just the error. It's what it represents. The idea that treasure can still be hiding right under our noses. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story is worth more than gold. Dealers today are hunting for these coins relentlessly. Social media has spread the legend of the 1979 D like wildfire. People are dumping their change jars, pulling out magnifying glasses, and inspecting every detail of their Washington quarters. And who can blame them? The idea that you could pull a life-changing coin out of a drawer is just too tempting to ignore. But here's what most people miss. The difference between a standard 1979 D and the million-dollar version is razor thin. You have to look closely at Washington's eye, the curve of the 7 in the date, and the rim alignment. If the letters "In God We Trust" look slightly thicker or blurred, you might be staring at something extraordinary. Collectors often joke that finding one feels like striking oil in your backyard. One small oversight from the Denver Mint turned an everyday coin into a seven-figure jackpot. And that's what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin could be a story waiting to be told. Some experts believe there may still be undiscovered specimens in circulation. The last confirmed one appeared over a decade ago, which means thousands of people might be spending rare coins without realizing it. Imagine buying a coffee with a coin worth more than a mansion. The U.S. Mint never officially acknowledged how the error occurred, adding to the mystery. Some think it was due to an experimental die test. Others believe it was simply a worker's mistake during a late-night production shift. Either way, those few coins slipped through the cracks and into history. Start by checking for that D mint mark below Washington's portrait. It must be bold, slightly tilted, or show doubling. Examine the word Liberty carefully. Any shadowing or doubling is your biggest clue. The more defined and crisp the doubling, the higher the value, and condition matters. A coin in mint state, with little to no wear, could fetch astronomical prices. Even circulated ones with clear doubling can sell for thousands. Collectors advise using a jeweler's loupe or magnifier and inspecting your coins under natural light. Avoid cleaning them, as even a light wipe can destroy their value. If you think you've found something special, get it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. The next $1 million quarter could be sitting quietly in your coin jar, waiting for you to notice it. Every great coin discovery begins with curiosity, the willingness to look a little closer. And in a world where most people overlook the small things, those who pay attention often strike gold. This isn't just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the thrill of finding something extraordinary where no one else thought to look. The 1979 D. Washington quarter reminds us that miracles can hide in the mundane, that even spare change can hold a secret capable of changing your life forever. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or count your change, don't rush. Look closely. Inspect the date. Check that D-mint mark. Study the details, because one of those coins could hold the kind of magic that turns dreams into reality.